Hi, it's Sherri from A Quilting Life, and today I'm coming to you from my sewing room just to talk about a few things productivity as they relate to quilters. I've written a couple blog posts on this before, but I thought it would be a really great topic to kind of have a discussion about. I think right now, and I'm filming this on May 2nd, 2020, some of us have what we feel like is more time on our hands than we have had in the past, and maybe some of us are feeling like, why aren't I using my time better? Or how can I get more sewing done because I do have this time? And while there's all these strange things going on in our world, I feel like the things I want to talk to you about today will really help you get things done now and in the future when hopefully things are a little bit more back to normal. So I'm going to just be sharing I think I have 11 tips that I'll be sharing with you today. Okay, so tip 1 is to brainstorm. I feel like some people think like, oh, what do you mean? How am I going to get more done if I'm wasting my time brainstorming? But no, I think it's a really important part of the creative process. And by brainstorming, I mean look through books that you have. Look through magazines that you have, scroll through Instagram, scroll through Pinterest, read blogs, get the information out there and get the ideas going in your head about what you want to do. I feel like it's really important to take notes while you do this too. So keep a notebook where, if you see something that you might want to make, you can write it down. Sometimes you might look at it later and think, oh, I really don't want to make that. It's too much work, or I have other things that are more important. But I feel like the brainstorming part is actually not just a part of the creative process, but really a part of the productivity process. Another tip that I have is for you to just go through and sort and organize your works in progress. This will help you to maybe spark that interest in an older project. Say, oh, I really want to finish this. Why did I quit working on this? I think we all have those kind of thoughts about our projects. You might find something that you've forgotten about. I do that all the time. And sometimes when I find projects that I've stored away, they're almost done. And so I can pull them out and add a couple of borders and get them to my quilter, and I have a quilt. So I feel like, the second tip is really sorting through your works in progress and helping those projects stay current and fresh in your mind. Okay, now tip 3 is regular planning. And I know this is hard for some people who think, oh, I'm not a planner, I'm not a list maker. But by regular planning, I mean there are 2 steps. Number 1 is, what did I do recently? I think sometimes we forget to pat ourselves on the back for the things that we finished. Maybe we finished some pot holders, or maybe we finished a placemat or a table runner. And so it's good to say, hey, I got this done, just kind of review it. And then the second part of the regular planning is, what do I want to get done this week? And so that keeps it fresh in your mind, what you want to do. And so when you do have that time that you can get to your sewing machine, that you have something in mind what to do. So that's the third tip. It's just a regular kind of review and planning process. And I really feel like that helps me get more things done. So the fourth thing that I recommend is lists, and I've talked about this before. Lists of works and projects, list of bucket list projects that you want to start someday, lists of gifts you want to make, lists of easy projects that are quick to accomplish that you might want to make. So that's tip number 4, is to have lists that you can look through and use to help get your plans in place for the time that you have available for sewing. Tip 5 is to have a realistic time frame. Sometimes I've done this to myself over and over again. Oh yeah, I can finish that in 2 days. Oh, and my poor quilters, they're the ones that hear this from me. Oh, I'll probably be bringing this to you on Wednesday, and then it's actually Friday when I take it to her. Because I just didn't have a realistic time frame for how long something was going to take me to finish. And so I feel like that's really important. I read a book called Essentialism by Greg McCune, and one of his suggestions was that when you're planning how much time something is going to take you, add 30%. So I thought that was super helpful, and I try to do that now. take my first guess of how long something's going to take me to do, and then I'll add that 30%, and then it makes it to where sometimes I actually get it done when I think I can because of adding that extra time. So having a realistic time frame really does help with your productivity. This one's kind of not sewing related, but tip 6 is menu planning. Honestly, if you know what you're going to eat, you can have more time for quilting. And you know, summer's coming up, so there's a lot of simple meals and salads you can prepare. We can use our slow cookers, we can barbecue, but just to have a plan, to me, seems to be the #1 way to keep on track, because I don't have to stop and think, oh, what am I going to make for dinner tonight? So not sewing related, but really helps me get more done in the sewing room. Okay, so tip 7 is quick cleanups. I've been doing these a lot lately, and they've really been helping. And I used to always recommend, you know, clean your sewing room or your sewing area, your sewing space on a monthly basis. But lately, because of actually filming these videos, I've been doing it more frequently, and it has really helped. You just don't realize you stick something in a pile and you forget about it 2 days later. So it's really been helping me to clean my sewing room really on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. It's just been a great tip, you know. So from now on, I'm going to try to keep this process because I really feel like it helps. Okay, so tip 8 is actually to cut out multiple projects at once. The other day I had some ideas about some quick small projects that I wanted to do, and I got them all cut out and prepared at one time, and I didn't put any kind of deadline on myself. I thought, oh, you know, whatever I get to will be fine, but it was amazing. I actually got everything done in one afternoon because I had prepared and cut them out ready to go the night before. So cutting out multiple projects at once is really a great way to help increase your productivity. So tip 9 is ready to sew. And by ready to sew, I mean that I try to leave something ready to sew the next time I come into my sewing room, every time that I leave my sewing room. So it might be a binding that needs to be sewn on a quilt. It might be some strip piecing. It might be some, in this instant, this is my ready to sew for today. I've just got some half square triangle paper things that are ready to sew. I've got them pinned. I just will set them right on top of my sewing machine. Sometimes my ready to sew project isn't really a sew project. This stack that I've got prepared are half square triangles from this paper that have already been sewn, and they're just, you know, ready for the paper to be torn off and to be trimmed. So this is another ready to sew project. I try to have these actually types of projects that I can take in the other room when I'm watching TV and just have something to work on there. Another example of a ready to sew project that isn't exactly a ready to sew project is if my bobbins need filling or if my machine needs to be oiled. I'll sometimes take the bobbin out of my machine to remind myself that don't sew until you fill up 5 other bobbins and oil your machine and clean your machine. So it's just like something that's ready for you to do so that the next time you walk in your sewing room, you have something ready to go. Along the same lines, I also have this idea that you should always have something ready to take. So if you're going on a road trip or you're going to be at a ball game or, you know, visit a family. And so this is like a ready to take project. It's a little mini project, and inside I've got my mini charm squares and I've got the templates. So I can just throw this in my purse with a needle keeper and a pair of scissors, and I've got a little project to do if I have spare time. And sometimes I take these with me and they go in my purse and I never get a chance to work on it, but then at least you always have it. So that's tip 10, ready to take. And it can just be something really small. It can be a quilt to bind or anything like that. Okay, so I have just one more productivity tip to share with you, and that's productivity tip 11. And I call that top 3. And I feel like this is really important. You should always have a top 3 for the month and for the week and for the day. And you can of course relate this to just daily life, but I think it's really important to have it for the sewing room too. And they can be really simple things. They don't have to be complicated things. You know, top 3 for the day in the sewing room might be to, you know, fill bobbins, clean lint, do a little straightening, and sew a few blocks for a project you're working on. You know, that could be the top 3. It can be really simple, and you can look at it, like I said, daily, weekly, whatever works for you, and then of course monthly. So those are my top 11 tips for increasing your productivity in the sewing room. I hope they're helpful to you. They've been really helpful to me. Some of them I've been using for several years, and they just are habits now that I just do. Some of them are newer habits, but they're all super helpful to me, and hope that they'll be helpful to you so that you can be able to spend more time doing the sewing and quilting that you love. I hope that you'll subscribe to the channel, and thanks so much for stopping by.